All right. The whole situation with Elon Musk and what very much looked like the Sig Heil. I understand why people were so upset and had such an emotional reaction to it. I saw the video. I went, my initial reaction, I didn't pay any attention to politics or anything. And I just happened to be scrolling through LinkedIn and saw the picture and went, what the heck? But taking my own wisdom and advice, I said, now before I react or say something or comment, I want to make sure I understand what's actually going on here. So I went and I looked up the video and kind of read people's commentaries on it and all of this. And so I understand, and this is where I really appreciate having people that I talk with regularly that are all over the political spectrum, is that I understand why people were very upset. I understand why at first glance that would set off things for a lot of people, not just because of the act itself, but the whole energy that is going right now with the new, political team is really this culture of power and domination, and we're going to get things done. We're going to make America powerful again. So when you combine that with even the appearance of something that seems to send a message that reinforces one of the most horrific situations in modern human history, I understand where that makes a whole lot of people freak out and get upset. And so I'm sensitive to the folks who saw that and had a very emotional reaction. I'll admit, when I first saw it, I was like, what the, and I talked to some folks who it really brought up a lot of fear. It brought up a lot of emotions of where things are going, a lot of things. And so if you're somebody who saw it and sees the people who are getting upset or, freaking out or, doing all this stuff, I get where it can be easy to have a reaction and say, that's ridiculous. Nobody should feel that way or whatever. But you don't get to do that to somebody. It's not okay to say, because I don't understand why this upset you or frightened you. You don't get to do that to somebody. And if you actually talk to a lot of people, all right, granted, there's some people that I think were just upset about it and they didn't even really know why they were upset other than they read a headline. I get that there is that. But there were also some people that I talked to who have experienced some real things in life. And seeing this brought up all of that again. And until you actually have a conversation with somebody and lean in, you don't know. And you don't get to say, because it doesn't make sense to me, you don't get to have that. Because the emotions are real and the feelings are real and the fear is real. And you dismissing it is actually only stoking the fire. And I think that's one of the things that, as I look at it from the side of people who really had a reaction to this, it's one of these things where people don't like how people respond, but then they behave in such a way it only fuels the fire further. So you see a reaction from people, you don't feel it's justified. Your defenses go off because it's an attack at your tribe. And so the response is to gaslight them back or dismiss what they're, and it ends up in this cycle of insanity, absolute insanity. Now, here's the thing. I guess I didn't even give context to this. If you haven't seen the video, I'd encourage you to watch it, because I see it and I go, should Elon Musk, somebody who's one of the most powerful people in the world, he knows he's going to set off a lot of things. He knows, all this stuff. And should he have known better than to make a gesture like that? Yeah. And the fact that people who are dismissing what he did can't even acknowledge that, that was whether he intended to or not, he's somebody who should be at a point where he doesn't do things like that. But I also recognize, and that's where I have a whole suite of complicated emotions with this, because I have a sibling who is severely mentally disabled. And I'm not saying, don't take that as, that's what I'm saying about Elon Musk. But she's autistic is one of the things in combination with some other things. And so I'm familiar with people doing things that don't make sense to me and responding in ways that seem very foreign and unfamiliar and very inappropriate. And so I wrestle with the complexity of that. I wrestle with the emotions behind being at the rally and, all these other things. And so I don't just look at it and, jump all over Elon. At the same time, I also look at it and go, yeah, but come on, it's not helping the situation to completely dismiss that what he did was weird and inappropriate given the context and his inability to say, hey, that's not what I intend. If it's not, if it is, well, then that's another conversation. But if it isn't, if it truly was, I was excited, I was just gesturing to people and whatever, then own it. Then own it and say, but I get it. I get how it looked. I get that. I understand. And that was not where my heart was at. And I'm sorry, for anybody who was offended or hurt by that. And I've talked to people on the defensive side of Elon who can't even seem to wrap their head around that. And that to me is concerning. So, the lessons that I have as I come out of this, or that I think we can all walk away from, is, if you were somebody who had a reaction to it, I think a negative reaction to it, I think one of the things that's always important is I talk about the fact, like, take every thought captive, slow down. I think there were people who were flying off the handle about it before they even really knew what happened. They just saw a picture on social media. And I think that's where you'll see some of the responses of people posting other pictures of image snapshots of somebody's hand in a similar position, because if you catch it at the right moment, it can look like that. And I get that, which is why it's important to slow down and really take the time to understand, what am I really dealing with here? Like, where is this coming from? But like I said, I really empathize with the people who this brought up a lot of pain, a lot of fear, a lot of raw emotions. And to you, I want you to know that I see you and I feel you. And I'm sorry that you went through that this week. That would be very, very difficult, especially given the environment right now. And I see where that's coming from. To the folks on the other side, I just would implore you to have a little bit of empathy and remember that you don't get to tell somebody else whether their fear or their emotions are fair or right. It's not on you to say that. It's for you to understand. It's for you to say, why did that upset you so much? What's really going on? Because for a lot of the people I talked to, it had less to do with the actual action. It was what that action made them think about, or what it brought up, or the fear of where things are going. It wasn't necessarily the action, but when it gets blown up into that, you can't even have a conversation. And so on the other side, if you slow down and actually seek to understand what people are feeling, understand what they're going through, understand why they're having the reaction, you can empathize so much better and say, yeah, okay, I'm sorry that it brought all that up for you. And I'm sorry. And it was weird. It was weird and inappropriate, whether intentional or not. Come on, most powerful, richest man in the world. He should know that a gesture strikingly similar to a Sig Heil, it's not okay, not appropriate, and just own that. Just own that. And I've heard people go, well, even if he owned it, nobody would listen to it. Well, that's on them then. That's on them. And I think that's kind of my concluding reminder here to leaders or anybody. I mean, we're all leaders. Somebody's looking up to you. Even if you feel like nobody cares about me, nobody looks up to me, somebody does. There's someone in your life who looks up to you. And we're all in this place where I think we can walk away from some of these lessons of, what? People are watching you. People are seeing what you're doing. And so your actions matter. And yeah, you're going to make mistakes, but think twice before you do stuff, especially in the internet age where something can be caught out of context and blow up before you even have a chance to respond to it. So just be really careful about that. And if you realize that you did something that hurt somebody, whether intentional or not, just take responsibility for it. Take ownership of it and say, and it doesn't mean you have to admit, yes, I did it for that reason and I'm this deplorable human. No, if you really didn't mean to do something and it hurt somebody's feelings, you can say, I really didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to hurt you that way. And I'm sorry that it did. I'm really sorry that it did. And I know some people go, you can't say, well, yeah, I'm sorry your feelings are hurt. Well, okay, it's your heart attitude about it. If you really are just rolling your eyes going, sorry you're so upset, you're being a jerk. But if you can sincerely say to somebody, I see how this really hurt or upset you. I promise you that was not my intent. And I'm sorry that it brought that up for you. You should be able to empathize with that. You should be able to say those things. And if you don't, you need to do some hard work and look in the mirror and say, you know what? Hey, but I think we just need to spend some time, because this is just the beginning. Good grief. We're like a week in and we're already blowing up left and right, as you'll see from some of my topics. So that's where I'm at right now. Like I said, I had a whole suite of complicated emotions. So if you were to say, Christopher, how did you feel about it? I felt all the things. That's just tends to be where I'm at. I tend to talk to enough people that I end up feeling the same feelings that everybody's feeling, whether they're on one side or the other. And that's what's hard for me when I watch people tearing each other apart, is I go, if you took the time to get to know people, you might still not agree with them, but you might at least be able to empathize and say, I understand that, and I'm sorry for that, and be there for that. And it'll be reciprocated. Because at the end of the day, the thing I think about with the last thing, and then I'll move on, the people that are like, well, no matter what Elon did, people would do it anyway. You don't take responsibility for your actions for what you're going to get in return. You take responsibility for your actions because it's the right thing to do. And so if you justify doing something and it hurts somebody, and you justify it by going, well, they're not going to care if I apologize anyway, that's a really crappy reason to not. Just do it because it's the right thing to do. And if they choose to not believe you or still treat you like crap, then that's on them. But do everything you can to move beyond it.